So, for folks who don't know about Carolina Academy of Performing Arts, I was going to call it CAPA, and I'm like, nobody knows what that is. So let's just call, let's. Um, you're the artistic director, but tell me a little bit about the organization and what you've been doing, because I know you started out. Estes is a rock star in our house. He taught my son acting, and so I know you started out with him, but there was definitely a void in this area. So talk to me about starting Kappa.
Okay, well, I do. I love Estes, and I was teaching at his amazing school, Moonlight Stage Company. And I did that for 3 years. I'm originally from California, and just I had little tiny kids at that time. My daughters, Abigail and Neely, were toddlers. And the traffic had gotten so bad on the 440 that I was paying babysitters an extra 2 to 3 hours with my children to go teach 3 classes. And so after a bit of time, I just talked with Estes and said, what if I started doing something that way? And he was fully supportive, and he and I are dear friends. In fact, we're working together on Tuesday. You know what I mean? So we're dear friends. And there just was this pull to do something closer to home for my family and also to keep me teaching. But interestingly enough, my daughter Peyton Prince was leaving for college to go get her BFA. And I just didn't want her to get like pulled into the college scene so much that we never saw her again. So we started this little summer program. But the thing is, she earned a little tiny bit of money. We did Beauty and the Beast. It was like 2017. And the funny thing is after Beauty and the Beast, all the kids were like, hey, what's next? What are we doing? It's September. So what are we going to do? So we just it's just really grown organically. Um, and I would say that what kind of sets Kappa apart is that I really treat my students and I teach them as though they will be pros. And I know I did that at Moonlight as well. You know, I have some students from Moonlight who did amazing things. And I have students with Kappa, as you've mentioned, who are doing amazing things.
So,
So,
well, now you're doing Between the Lines, which is so exciting. It had a successful off-Broadway run. They created this amazing cast Broadway cast record or off-Broadway cast recording.
mm.
How did you receive permission to do this? Because I don't even think it's licensed yet.
You're exactly right. You're so savvy. Yes. I'll tell you. So I have had the pleasure of encountering Tim McDonald, who did the libretto. He did the book. I believe that he and Jodi could be personal friends. And as you know, Jodi Picoult wrote the book that this is based off of with her daughter. She's a very successful author. And I've had the privilege of taking my group to Junior Theater Festival in Atlanta every year for the last several years. I mean, obviously, COVID kind of redirected us to Houston once a year later and things like that. But so we kind of have followed him because of that relationship. And while I was in New York with my daughter, when her show closed, we just kind of started going to see everything we could. We had time left on our lease. And so we just spent amazing time in New York City. And of course, Between the Lines was on my list of shows to see. So we went, and then we quickly became kind of the part of the cult following who just kept going back over and over again to this show because it is so magical. I mean, obviously, the stages in New York City, they're a little smaller sometimes. And obviously, when you're working with professional equity actors and all of that, their cast sizes can be smaller. But when I watched the show, I mean, you wouldn't believe the magic that, each actor played 2 to 3 or more roles. I love watching ensemble members do that. Anyway, it's like when I was watching it, I could just see it with our group. And the very first time I saw it, I'm like, I got to do this show. So I went back again when a friend came into town. And then on closing night, it was just like, I was aware it was their closing night. And I thought, so literally an hour before the show, I was like, girls, do you guys want to just like jump on the subway and like run down and go see if there's any tickets left. We get in line. There are 3 tickets left. There are 3 only. And we got them. And it was funny because someone, my husband actually, was like, did you see who went in? Your man went in the theater. Like he was just letting me know that Tim McDonald, our very own celebrity, he really is music theater royalty. He has been the groundwork for shows turning into junior shows so that they could be accessible for elementary schools and middle schools. He's just incredible. Anyway, he's like, your man just walked in. So I hang up with him and I'm excited to see Tim there. And when I was able to talk with him there, I said, we want to do this show. So it took a little bit for him to actually even see an email from me, months actually. And I was planning to do a whole other show for summer because time was kind of marching on. But not having our own theater space actually ended up being a gift because we were kind of having to finagle where we were going to offer our intensive this summer. That bought me time. And I did hear back from Tim and he said, absolutely, we would love for CAPA to do this show. And so it's been a wonderful partnership so far. We love MTI, Music Theater International, who will be holding this license. And we love iTheatrics, which is the company for that Tim McDonald.
Does it help or hinder? I think that cast, that Off-Broadway cast was amazing. Julia Murney, Ariel Jacobs. I mean, there were some amazing folks in that cast.
Absolutely.
So does it help or hinder or put extra pressure having seen that cast several times and then bringing it here and kind of breathing a whole new life into it?
And it is a whole new life because we are working with 6-year-olds all the way, we have college students. We've had, several CAPA students we've helped get into college programs for music theater. And several have come back to do the show. We hope more will. The whole magic of CAPA, not to derail I'm going to circle back, but the magic of CAPA is that we launch these students and then they go and do amazing things in college professionally, and that they will circle back. So on our team this year, we have at least 4 students, college students, coming back for summer to work the program, which is it's just like full circle for me. And they're the real estate that my students have on my heart, is for life. But so yes, it is a whole different, but I would say seeing the pros do it, it's like this imagery of littles sitting in the front row, like last night at rehearsal, these little tinies and their little profiles looking up at these, high school and college students who might as well be Broadway stars. Do you know what I mean? They're looking to the pros and saying to themselves, I can do that, so it's helpful. I wish all of them could have seen it because there's literally nothing. They have searched the internet high and low to find even a glimpse of the magic that happened off Broadway this past year, and they can't find a thing. So
there apparently was a pro shot. They showed the pro shot at Broadway Con, so I'm hoping at some point the world gets the pro shot. I was working my booth and doing interviews. I didn't get to see the pro shot, but I heard it was pretty magical and saw it has a truly dedicated fan base because they were all there wearing their between the lines shirt.
That's exactly right. But I'm saying at least the original cast recording exists and works to inspire this next generation to tell the same story in a new way,
I love that so much. And you mentioned Jodi Picoult doing right. This is based on a young adult novel, which she's not known for young adult novels, but this was her first, written with her daughter. It's so interesting to me because we're in this moment where books are being banned and many of her books have been banned, and she's been so outspoken about book bans. And yet I think this is the perfect platform, the perfect vehicle to speak to the power of books for young people to be able to write their own story,
Oh, yeah.
especially if they're othered, especially if they're I have two out of the box kids, so especially if they're out of the box kids.
Oh yeah. We love out of the box kids. You know what I mean? I protect them like a lioness at the gate, if you know me personally, and always want to make sure there's a place for them wherever I am. Right. But I do, it's so fun doing a musical that is based on a book because, as you know, things kind of shift in the creation process to shift it from book to stage. But because we have the book, actors, I'm always teaching them to be smart actors and to make smart decisions and to be informed. And so it's been wonderful to be able to work with characters and get a little more information from the book that we don't actually have in the script. I mean, and obviously there were changes, there were new characters added, obviously music added, all the things added. But, there was a time, and it's like Frump the dog, who in the fairy tale world is Prince Oliver's, friend. But Prince Oliver in the script is very good friends with, seems to have good relationships with everyone in the fairy tale world. But to be able to tell Frump, like, you were childhood friends with Oliver. And that information, of course, comes from the book. So anyway, it's just nice to have that little extra piece too when we're searching for the pieces to put this all together.
Well, it's like putting together a puzzle and creating that backstory and having that extra information from the author herself is amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Talk about the production process, and how the kids have embraced this. Typically, you are at one of the church auditoriums when you do these productions. This one is at the AJ Fletcher space, which I love, at the Marietta Martin. I always want to call it Raleigh Memorial
Martin
Auditorium.
Marietta Center for the Performing Arts. It's a mouthful, but
it is a mouthful, but it is
grateful
a great
for that
facility. So talk about their production process, rehearsal process, and really taking the big stage.
Yeah. I kind of am a follow your gut, go with your instincts, person. I am a performer myself. And so I do kind of make decisions based on emotion, right? And when I was sitting in the theater in New York watching the show and knowing that my group just had to do this, I could literally I'm such a visual person too. I could visualize bringing it to life with a huge cast, and littles. I love littles on stage because juxtaposed to the big kids, it helps the big kids read as adults. They look more like adults that they're playing when they have these little bitties around them. So, anyway, I would say this process this time has been so different though, because once a show is licensed, there's rehearsal tracks and performance tracks. I mean, we've always used tracks just basically because of resources, but this year, our music director, Hunter Browning, who is a local middle school teacher and an absolute genius, very, very young teacher, but just, incredibly talented. He's our music director. Anyway, he has put together an orchestra, and this is a youth orchestra. But if you listen to this orchestra, you're listening to professional artists, and that's what I feel about when I'm watching my students perform. I am expecting professional performances. And so people should come to the theater with that expectation for sure. So literally I've had to reach out, or my stage manager, reach out to Hunter and be like, oh, we need a track. And he'll just whip out a piano track. Then we'll have the kids sing to it so that the choreographer, the amazing Ashley Anderson, can then choreograph to what will really be played. Because I know you know this because you're savvy, but a cast recording is different than what is played in the theater, by the orchestra during a live performance of a show. They cut out all the dance breaks and things like that.
And the
And so,
talking and the dialogue and all the little overlays.
yes. So fundamentally, the huge difference has been that we're kind of feeling like we're putting a show together it would be almost like a workshop in New York, because we just don't have all the resources that normally come when you license a show.
Does this somehow set a precedent or pave the way for the licensing? Is MTI are they learning from this experience as well? Because this is the first time.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm really thrilled to say that they've given us releases that every person involved with the show, from creators to students to adults, we are all signing a release so that we can film it and give that to them. So it does feel like New York eyes are all on Raleigh right now. Do you know what I mean? It does feel that way. And of course I want to get it right. Right. And also follow my creative vision, the director's vision. I definitely have a vision. It's so inspired by obviously what I saw in New York, but obviously the creators, the music is incredible. So yes, it does feel like eyes are on us from New York, and I'm grateful for that tutelage,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had any contact with Jodi Picoult from this?
So she has, sent video message, I think really to Raleigh to say, come see the show, come see this cast do the show. She's reached out. She has been in touch with our marketing media person, Angie Staley. So yes, we, and I have no doubt that they will be watching. She and Tim McDonald are like jet setting off to London for the Book Thief opening.
Yes.
And so isn't that going to be great? I read that, another book, right? Amazing. So they're not able to come in person. And we, obviously we extended that invitation, but we do feel their full support. They're amazing.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Arts education is I feel it is so important, whether kids want to go into the arts or not, because there's so many life skills to be taught in the arts. And what I love about programs like yours is it really supplements the lack of arts programs in our schools. So can you talk about the importance of arts education and the importance of community to support programs like yours? Yours is a nonprofit, so I think people need to know that and support it.
Yes. In fact, we started out as a corporation, but it very quickly became, obvious that there's absolutely no money in the arts. I have worked primarily as a volunteer, and so we have partnered and created a nonprofit. The intention is that once it's, viable and able to survive on its own, that they will merge. The nonprofit actually was created to build space dedicated to the arts for youth programming. Obviously, if we can create this space that I'm imagining, which is regional sized and beautiful, which is also why we're going to Fletcher, we want to raise the ceiling for our students. We want to raise the mindset of our patrons and parents. And obviously, like you said, anyone in the community that can be passionate about building this space in this region to support youth arts. We partner with schools at any level that schools can have arts in their, in their walls. CAPA tries we make huge efforts to support their programming. We don't do school year productions because we are preparing students to go and do the productions in their schools. Mm-hmm. We, like you said, we are supplemental and kind of making up the difference, but also empowering schools by giving them students that have a lot of experience, you know, a lot of tools. We run during the school year, we run a company program and also recreational classes where students can come and get training and do all of those things that they don't always offer in the schools. But again, we love schools. We want arts in the schools, and we want arts in the community. You wouldn't believe how many times, you know, we're doing classes and giving kids tools in their actor performer tool belt during the school year, but a lot of our littles are like, we want to do a show. So we refer them to my colleagues' programs to go and do shows, right? It's kind of an all hands on deck approach where these, you know, we encourage our students to go to other theater companies and go and do, because by doing you grow, and not all schools are able to offer that. It's so sad, Lauren, that like 2 youth programs in our region closed. And the primary reason they closed is funding. These are supplemental programs that are closing. It's just heartbreaking for me. So to be able to build this space to house the arts and support them more, you know, more viably, more actively in our area is a passion of mine. You know,
I love that. And I also think the arts are important, particularly right now. I know there's been a lot of talk about this COVID generation of kids. You know, they've had a lot to deal with, they've had a lot to process. And I think the arts provides a gateway to do that in a safe environment.
absolutely. And it builds, you know, resilience. Not to give away my director's welcome note in the program, but I talk about that in there. I talk about how, you know, so much feels out of our control, but really we have all the control in the world because we get to choose how we respond to the, you know, to inevitable adversity like the pandemic that comes our way. And I often get calls from my students' parents like, I'm terrified for them to go to college and major in the arts. Like, how are they going to feed themselves when they're grown, you know? And it's just like, I love those calls because it's an opportunity to say, in the arts are born human beings that are resilient, flexible. They land, you know, they very much land on their feet. There's things in acting and performing that align so much with the most important characteristics in life, which is flexibility, you know, and optimism. I always say that shows they launch because enough people working hard together all want the same thing. So when it just feels like the show is just like falling apart, everything always comes together in the end because of the energy and, you know, of the people involved. So anyway, it's a life building experience, no matter the level of involvement in the arts.
What do you hope folks coming to Fletcher next week will get out of seeing this production?
I mean, obviously, I want them to feel the magic, right? And I'm telling you, Lauren, if I had $1 million to put this show up, wow, can we even add to the magic? But just honestly, the students are bringing the magic. I want them to feel the magic of imagination, of healing. There's a true element of the story of a person who is finding their voice, dealing with opposition in magical ways, but also in truthful ways. You know, the lead, Keaton Weeks, does a beautiful job telling Delilah McPhee's story, which is all about Delilah McPhee finally being able to write her own story. You know, as teenagers, we can all remember the teenage angst, right? Of like so much being out of our control and navigating that. And then we figure out that we have more power than we realize, right? And I think it's a constant theme in our lives, like as we mature and the phases of our lives, going back and and to the basics of I get to choose. I get to choose what I believe. I get to choose how I spend my time. I get to choose what I hope and dream for, you know? So just that overall message of empowerment, I think, you know, empowerment set to a musical, right? I feel like, and it's also obviously inclusion and those things too, forgiveness. There's so many themes, but I think you won't leave in a bad mood. You will leave edified, uplifted.